You are listening to the Pencil and Paper Podcast Network.
I'm Katrina, and I love anime.
I'm Stephen, and I'm aware of anime.
But what if that affection could rub off?
Perhaps that excitement in her eyes got me curious.
I could offer up some solid anime.
I could give them a watch, just to see what all the fuss is about.
And maybe, just maybe,
I could learn to love anime too.
welcome to Inspired by a Weeaboo. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Inspired by a Weeaboo. I am your host Katrina, and with me is my husband Stephen.
Hello.
We just finished the 2003 version of Fullmetal Alchemist. Stephen, what did you think?
Well, I'm not as emotionally attached to some of these people as you are.
I know, I was fighting back tears in several parts.
There were numerous times I saw your hands come up in a certain way, and I was like, oh shit, something bad's about to happen. It's like I knew. I know how you react to certain things, especially when you know.
Yeah. I got a really bad poker face.
So I'm just going to break down the episode real quick and mention everything after the fact, I guess, how I feel about it, because it was a lot. And
Yes.
I also have some thoughts overall about it. But I know we're technically not done because we've mentioned the movie and all that, but still, I do want to talk about this as a series.
Yes.
So starting right back where we left off with watching Ed slump over dead.
Yeah.
Envy declares that all humans are going to die and only the homunculi will survive. And Dante elaborates that humans will always come short of the prices they have paid. Al is left to ponder the horrible demise of his brother, just as Gluttony charges toward Al, ready to start eating him. I guess I was thinking of another way he was going to be eating him than what we actually got. It was kind of weird. Now, back at the Führer's mansion, the military group that is escorting Hawkeye out, along with the wife and son, come under attack by Archer, who says that he's going there to protect the Führer. And the soldiers are like, well, we just came from there. Everything's cool. And he even kind of acknowledges that they caught Hawkeye, and the moment he hears her name, he immediately starts opening fire on the car in which she's sitting in, but Hawkeye is able to break free and retreat. Watching the soldiers restrain Archer, Salim slips away back to the mansion. Now, in the cellar of the mansion, Bradley escapes the fire that we saw happen, where we last left him, where the big explosion. His skin was burned, but it regenerates using the red stones in his body. He pins Mustang against the wall. Pride laughs it off about how petty Mustang's dream of becoming the Führer was, and he will never be in a position of power again for attempting assassination. And Mustang admits that, he only wished to avenge Hughes, but Pride continues to put Mustang through agonizing pain. And at that moment, Salim appears, and he comes in apologizing, saying he didn't mean to come back. Bradley comes over and embraces him, and he just suddenly starts to feel pain, and he starts to ask what Salim had done, and Salim just says, well, I took your treasure from the safe, because that's what you I didn't want it to get burned. And I was just trying to save it, because I know it's important to you. And it was at this point I saw you reach to your face, and I was like, oh shit, something's about to happen. And I'm not sitting here looking at her directly, mind you. I'm seeing it out of the corner of my eye, and I'm like, yep, there it is.
Yeah.
So in this moment, the boy pulls out the treasure. Yeah, Salim pulls out what this treasure, quote unquote treasure, is, and it is a skull, which we can pretty much surmise is Bradley's skull, or at least the human that he was created from. So hence why he's being weakened, and just because he's angry or frustrated, he strangles the fuck out of this kid. And it was just like, shit.
Not just strangles, but you do hear a crack. He completely snaps his son's neck.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, Celine was not his biological child.
But still.
Because Fear Bradley cannot have children.
Mm-hmm.
But him and his wife did adopt the boy.
Mm-hmm.
And this child did love the man that he thought was his father. And then he literally died begging his father to stop, which the first time I ever watched this, I cried like a fucking baby.
Well, I mean, it's really fucked up because the son was only trying to help.
Yes,
he thought this was what his dad would want.
Yeah. Because his dad said, like, you know, with this, you hold my life in your hands. Granted, Celine didn't know what the heck it was, didn't know what his father was, none of that. But at the end of the day, all he was doing was trying to protect his daddy. And then his daddy full on just takes his ass out. And
keep in mind, this is a child.
Yes, he's just turned 10.
Yeah.
I think is what they said is his birthday. He just turned 10.
Right.
So a year older than our daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know.
I was fighting back tears.
Put that into perspective. But anyway, as that happens, Mustang pulls the sword that Bradley had kind of jammed into his shoulder, had him pinned up against the wall. He yanks that out as quick as he can and quickly rushes to Salim's body to grab the skull. He holds it up into the air using some of the blood that's on his body. He creates a transmutation circle on his glove, on the back of his hand, and then uses that to then attack Bradley. And he just essentially incinerates him. And, you know, good riddance, that son of a bitch. So, there's that. It's rough. Anyway, back at Dante's hideout, before Gluttony is done eating Al's armor, Al just says, fuck it, breaks free, and they're like, whoa, what are you doing? You can't do anything. And he's like, you can't tell me what to do. Piss off. Walks over to his brother and decides to sacrifice himself to revive his brother. And he makes it very clear that he, you know, has done, it's finally time he gives his share after so many people have died in exchange for his own life. But as he tries, or the moment he starts doing the transmutation, Envy jumps in to stop, and we cut to a scene where we see Ed and Envy at the gate, kind of in a spirit form. And then Envy they kind of have a little back and forth, and Envy asks, you know, what is that? And he's like, this is the gate. And he says, well, what am I, you know, where does it go, or what's happening? And he says, well, it seems like it'll take me to, or at least where I went was London. You know, at least that's where my dad said we were at. And he's like, well, then that's where I'm going to go. And he cracks open the gate and jumps in and says, take me to London. And I don't know what you'd call him, but as he's floating through this void, these little pitch black infants just start devouring his body, or at least it looks like that's what they're trying to do. And Envy tries to shake him off. He transforms into different forms. He tries Edward, he tries Hohenheim, and then he turns back into his final version before finally disappearing into the distance as a giant green dragon, which is kind of weird. All while saying, you know, he's going to kill his father. So, I don't know. That was kind of weird. But Ed wakes back up, and he is alive and well, with Rose standing above him and checking on him, and he realizes that he now has his limbs back. So not only did Al revive him, but he gave him back his arm and his leg.
Mm-hmm.
And Rose tells him about what Al did for him, and it just had a moment. But Dante runs out and tries to escape, but she said that she's going to have Pride help her get her work back in order.
Mm-hmm.
But only she is attacked by Gluttony, and I'm assuming, because we didn't technically see it, but I'm assuming Gluttony ate her. But what happened to Gluttony, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because she was going up in a elevator, and the elevator door opens, and they're both gone.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm not sure. But back with Hawkeye, we saw him incinerate the Fuhrer's skull in the fire. Then he takes Salim's body and starts heading outside. As soon as he reaches the outside, Archer is right outside the mansion. And he starts opening fire. But Hawkeye shows up in a matter of moments and shoots him from the back, which I was kind of wondering how her shots killed him since he was a cyborg, because I was like, well, wouldn't he technically have some mechanical parts that would kind of keep him alive? But
well, I think it's that, all the damage he took between everything that was happening at Central and trying to fight through all the soldiers, and then he did wreck the car into the other car where, Bradley's quote-unquote wife and son were, along with Hawkeye. So I think it's just basically the damage was just adding up.
Sure. So she shoots him in the back several times until he falls over dead, but when she reaches the mansion, she finds Mustang lying in a pool of blood.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, shit, they're just killing everybody. So that was a sad moment. Then we hop back to Rose, upon urging Rose to take Wrath with her, Ed creates another transmutation array using the same technique he used back when they started to get Al into the armor, in hopes of getting Al back from the gate.
Mm-hmm.
And this was about the time, like, when the credits started to roll. I was like, whoa, what? We're going to stop right here? But the credits were an extended epilogue, let's just say.
Yeah.
So we kind of jump ahead a little bit. And Cheska, who's back at Central Command as a records clerk again, writes a letter to Winry. Mm-hmm. And this is what we're kind of hearing. So with Bradley's disappearance, the Fuhrer rank is officially retired, and the political power of the Amistris has been transferred back to the assembly, with the Grumman addressing the troops, or with Grumman.
Mm-hmm.
And Cheska admits the conflicts against the other nations will still continue. However, Cheska also mentions that the policies towards Ishbal have also been undone, and Ishbalans are now allowed to return to their homeland, with the military helping them rebuild their homes. And in Ishbal, Rio, having overcome his prejudice, if we remember, he was very hell-bent against exiles, the ones that would turn or use alchemy, who were Ishbalans.
Mm-hmm.
He is helping other exiles out of their wagons. Cheska mentions that Mustang is still bedridden, so we see that he is alive, even though he is injured, because he's got, ironically, wearing a patch right over, well, more of a head bandage, but it looks like a larger patch.
Yeah.
Over the same eye.
It's still kind of, yeah.
So, over the same eye as Bradley. And Hawkeye apologizes to him for not reacting sooner and not getting there in time. And he's like, it doesn't matter. He's like, nothing's perfect. Everything doesn't have to be perfect. That's why life is beautiful. And we kind of get a hint that they're relationship has evolved a little bit, because we always kind of got that hint that they're kind of digging one another, but we never saw it go beyond that. So now it seems a little bit more like, they're hooking up.
Yeah.
And then finally, biggest surprise for me was finishing the letter. Cheska asked about Al, because it seems that Al is now back to his old self. He's a 10-year-old boy. Doesn't remember anything that's happened with Ed, but he's back to normal. So that begs the question for me, what the fuck happened? I don't know. I mean, was this part of what he did or part of what Ed did? I don't know. I'm confused. But in Risen Bull, you see Al playing with Winry's dog, Winry and Rose. Rose is actually I guess she's living with them now. Just kind of enjoying life, and Azumi and Sig and some of their friends, even grandmother, what's her name, Panako?
Yeah, yeah.
She arrives, and Azumi and Panako are kind of speculating what exactly happened, because, did Ed do kind of a reverse transformation or transmutation, or... I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense to them, because, he can't remember anything after the day that they transmuted their mother. So,
before they transmuted their mother.
Before, yeah.
Yes.
He has no memories before that date. So, Panako mentions that she and Winry provided Wrath with some automail before he left. And later that night at dinner, Al says that he wants to study alchemy again, and he wants to do it under Azumi so he can eventually find his brother. Cut to a shot where they're sending him off on a train station, kind of seeing him off, and Winry says that she's going to improve her automail and be the best automail mechanic there is, and he says he's going to be the best alchemist, and they're going to be a great team. They're all going to be together again. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Then we cut to the other world. Hohenheim is studying magic with the Thule Society in Munich, while Ed is studying about rockets, because he wants to go to space. And he even called Einstein a fool. He was just like, no one believes that fool, or something of that nature.
Yeah.
But he's hoping to locate an expert to use a rocket to return to his world. I don't really see how space... I don't know. I have to watch the movie, I guess, or something. But Ed speaks to his dad about why he's still alive, because if in this world, he's back to his old self. He's got his automail arm, and he's got his automail leg.
I will say, first of all, not technically. It...
Well, it looked like it. I mean, you telling
I
me?
think he meant by back to his self, because he gave up, quote unquote, what Al had gave him, was because he did lose his arm again. But I don't think it's not technically auto mail, because he can't, I don't think he can use it. It'd be like a regular prosthetic.
I was going to say that
arm.
He did look like he was kind of limping it off to the side.
Yeah.
So he's back to not having his two limbs and having artificials. So we can say that. So he was just kind of talking about, how did this exactly happen? In this world, he paid the price for resurrecting Al. So clearly he was responsible for that. But Hohenheim believes that all the experiences that he and his sons had was just part of the sacrifice. Cutting back to Ed and Al, they kind of intersperse the two of them on a train, kind of talking about how they're going to see each other one day. And just how they don't really see the equivalent exchange as the law of the world, but more of a concept. In this final bit where they're kind of narrating everything, you see Tucker with his doll.
Yeah.
You see the Ishbalan soldiers with military soldiers rebuilding their homes. You see Mustang and Hawkeye kind of having a jaunt out in the market. Cheska and some of her friends are standing at Hughes's grave.
It's
that
Cheska and
was,
Hughes's wife and daughter.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Then Russell and Fletcher, they're with their plants
Mm-hmm.
and doing all that. And then Winry is training under Dominic from Rush Valley. And the Elric brothers reach out into the sky and just vow to reunite one day. Yep. End scene.
End scene.
So that was the recap of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I want to talk about this as a whole. If there was not a movie.
Yes.
Okay. Knowing that if you had not told me that was there was a movie that kind of went beyond this and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
As frustrating as it would be, I still feel like that would have been some sort of a fitting end in a sense. Mm-hmm. Because things have improved because of them. They did what they set out to do in some regards. Mm-hmm. And everyone's all the better for it because of them. Mm-hmm. And you can see it in maybe Ed was, how do I put this? Being in the other world, being on the other side of the gate is almost like his penance for doing what he did in the first place. Yeah. But everything that happened because of the last thing he did, bringing his brother back, all that stuff, would almost be a good way of making it benefit the other world while he still has to pay for what he did. Being the equivalent exchange, if you will. Because now their world seems to be improved because of now I'm not saying just because he brought Al back everything is better, but everything leading up to that, Al's just the icing on the cake. Yeah. Know? It's like he finally got to have a body back because he suffered more than anybody.
Exactly. Yes.
So having him return back to his original body, fair. Yes. More fair than him getting his limbs back or anything like that. Mm-hmm. Because Al doing what he did, I understand what he did, but his sacrifice, absolute bullshit because all he's done is suffer.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, Edward was the one that thought of the human transmutation. Alphonse didn't want to do it. Yeah. Edward was the one that pushed for it. Alphonse still didn't really want to do it. He always felt kind of off about it. He only went along with it because of his brother. Right. And that's why Edward did have that guilt and everything, because he took Al's entire fucking life away from him. Yeah. Because of, their stupidity of as children. But I feel like it is one of those bittersweet, because neither of them know if the other one made it. Mm-hmm. And they are stuck on opposite sides of the gate. So in opposite universes. Right. And it's good that Al got his body back and he gets to relive his childhood without all of the trauma. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, I also feel like it's the bitter in the sense of, it's like as an adult, it's not going to, work out perfectly, obviously, mm-hmm. because nothing's ever perfect. But it just sucks that Alphonse literally lost his mother, his father, and his brother. Sure. And he doesn't even remember meeting his father. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't remember losing his brother. He doesn't remember all of the good times that they did have while Alphonse was in the metal body or anything like that. Because they did have fun. They did have good times. Sure. And they met a lot of people. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't get to remember any of it. He basically gets this clean slate. And to be able to grow up in his world where Edward is, I wouldn't even call it purgatory, because I don't really feel like it's a type of purgatory. I feel like in Edward's own way, he also gets a clean slate. He gets to live in this other world, and he gets to do it without alchemy, which has been the downfall of his entire life. Hmm. So, as I said, it's bittersweet because you want them to be together. You want the brothers to be together and to see each other, for Edward to look upon Al's face and everything else, because at the end of the day, Edward wouldn't have given a crap if he ever got his arm and leg back as long as Alphonse got his body.
Sure.
I mean, he could live, as you have seen, people in their universe live perfectly fine with automail.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, maybe they would, prefer their actual limbs, some of them, but we also know some of them actually get the procedure done just to have awesome ass metal arms.
No.
So I feel like Al definitely came out on top in it, where Edward kind of got a little more of the shit end of the stick. But at the end of the day, it is kind of one of those you reap what you sow.
Right. And that's why I was saying being where he is now is his penance.
Yes.
That he's having to deal with this like that. And that's why I said...
Sorry, go ahead.
And that's why I said I feel like if this is where it ended and there was no movie, I feel like as much as you want that happy ending, given everything that's gone on, it fits within the tone of the show.
And it does. And I mean, I can't even deem it really as a punishment either, because while Alphonse gets to grow and have all of his friends and family and, teacher, all them, Edward's not completely alone. And I think that is one of the good things. He has his father. His father knows who he is. His father is from his world. So, he knows all of it. So he literally has somebody he can confide in, which is really nice, because it would have really sucked if he would have just woken up and been completely and utterly alone in this world and have to figure everything out on his own. But yeah.
Yeah. I genuinely feel like this was a solid show as is. And when we get a chance to watch Brotherhood, again, I don't think we'll talk about Brotherhood on the show like this, not breaking it down episode to episode, but I would like to actually watch it and then maybe come back and do like a comparison.
Yeah.
Like really try to break down, like you said, there are a lot of big changes, and reflect
a
on
lot.
which story. Because again, they're taking what was half a story, and you know what? We'll even do this as a great example, because I feel, in my own personal opinion, looking at something that has done this as well, The Walking Dead comic book ran for 163. I think if that number's right, 163 issues, and just is done. And that was kind of the whole plan. As soon as there's an ending, it's done. And I'm assuming same with the manga. They had a plan. Whenever it was done, it was done. And granted, they started the anime before the manga was done, so they had to improvise. Now, same with The Walking Dead. They already started making divergent choices before they ran out of comics to adapt. And those choices just led to other choices, and more divergence here and there, and to the point, to me, I don't want to dismiss what they were doing. I just felt like where the show went narratively, I couldn't tell you, because we dropped off somewhere at some point.
Y'all, I bailed out as soon as they killed Jesus.
And that was a character that didn't die in the comics.
Yeah, that shit made me so fucking mad. I was so mad.
But it wasn't like little things like that. I mean, I appreciated them trying to keep it fresh.
Yes.
But at the same time, I don't feel like they were doing anything creative from a narrative perspective to keep me engaged.
Yes.
It was like, you're treading water here. You're dragging out shit. Come on. Whereas this, again, I have nothing to base that on, but if this was all I knew, and then I read those, and then even went to watch Brotherhood, had all this, I hope that at the end of the day, I can still appreciate what this was as an independent narrative.
That's why I wanted you to watch this one first, because I know a lot of people, like we talked about in the very first episode, a lot of people dismiss this anime because it isn't verbatim with the manga or Brotherhood. However, this is the one that a lot of anime lovers around my age freaking watched.
Yeah.
This was the first one. This is what we got. This is the one that, Fullmetal Alchemist Like Yu Yu Hakusho and Inuyasha and Cowboy Bebop were a jumping off point for a lot of people that fell in love with anime.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those, I wanted you to watch it, and that's why I was upfront with it not being, you know, exactly like it. And you're going to see the massive differences when we get into Brotherhood, because there are massive differences.
And I'm hoping that I'm sure I'll retain a lot of what we watched here, and I'm hoping that I can take that into Brotherhood, and I want to do comparisons. I want to be able to look at both sides of it and be like, do I prefer this angle or do I prefer this angle, or can I appreciate them as two separate things? Because I think that's another thing people don't like is when they adapt something and they make changes.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this came first. So if they had adapted this from the manga and done it straight, and then Brotherhood came out and then they made the changes, guarantee you people would hate that.
I mean, I was literally told to look at it as an alternate universe.
Which would make sense.
Like, again, some of the beats are the same. Like, you know, the way that Al loses his body, Ed loses his parent, you know, their mother dying, all that shit happens. Being friends with Winry, all that shit happens. Their father being friends with Panako, which is Winry's grandmother, all that shit is the same. Nina dying, all that's the same. Major Hughes dying, all that's the same. But then you get into who is pulling the strings, completely fucking different. Who is the head homunculus, completely fucking different. Like, their powers, completely different. The way, like, there's one thing that I'll say, and I don't feel like it spoils it for Brotherhood or anything like that, where this one, the homunculi are born because of human transmutation. That's not how it is in Brotherhood. However, there are multiple, but only 7 of them can exist at a time because they are the 7 deadly sins. Or they're based off of the 7 deadly sins, but only 7 of them can exist at a time. So like in the original where Greed dies, he's dead. That's it. That was all of Greed. Well, in Brotherhood, Greed dies, a new Greed comes. Because they can be replaced.
Right.
They're not infinite. They're not immortal. They can be replaced. And that is a big difference between this one because, like I said, Sloth is not their mom. You do not see Trish anymore other than in flashbacks and shit like that. She is not some monster lurking around. Izumi's child is not some monster lurking around. Like, none of that is canon. But I feel like for this one, it just creates those different kinds of threads and it creates those different kinds of scenarios, and you get a completely different scenario and set in Brotherhood by looking at it like it's 2 alternate universes kind of helps a little bit.
No, I can see that. And I appreciate that too, because you think about it, well, the stuff that they made, taking those beats and making like their mom Sloth and so on, just little details like that. I mean, it does kind of make it interesting from a narrative perspective because I mean, they had to come up with that on their own. I'm not sure if the creator of the manga had any input in what they did, or if it was just like, hey, you guys do whatever you got to do, and you know I'm going to do my thing. So I'll just trust that you are going to get there, wherever you need to go, but maybe give you a path on what the thread line is. Maybe I don't know. I don't know how that conversation went, but if they had nothing to go on and they were just like, well, we got to come up with something. It's pretty creative stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, based on a lot of the details that were already there, they just said, well, and to do it from the moment, like you said, from the start, and everything comes back around. I mean, kudos. I mean, that's all I got to say. I mean, that's impressive.
And one of the things that I remember saying to you, one of the last few episodes that we did, when they kind of Ed and Al brushed arms, and they saw the gate. And it was the first time Al remembers the gate.
Yeah.
In the light, If you pay attention during that scene, when it shows the light in the gate, the outline is of Alphonse.
Oh.
It is the outline of his body inside the gate.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, in Brotherhood, they go a step further with it because in this one, Alphonse didn't age. He was 10 years old. However, in Brotherhood, they took it a totally different way to where even though he's inside the gate, his body is still growing.
Oh, okay.
So when you get that scene in Brotherhood where Edward finally sees the gate again and he realizes that Alphonse is trapped, like his body is trapped in the gate, you actually see what Alphonse looks like instead of only seeing him as a child through the entire fucking series until he becomes a child again at the end, which I really, really liked. I really fucking liked it because when I watched it, it made me cry just seeing Edward and realizing that that is his brother and he was like screaming for him. And you just kind of see like Alphonse just kind of turn his head and just kind of look at him. And it's just like, it explains it makes things make more sense than the original. And that is one thing I will give it credit for.
Yeah.
Like it makes things make so much more sense. Like Alphonse not remembering. It's fucking explained in Brotherhood why Alphonse does not remember certain things from his childhood. And it has to do with the gate.
Okay.
The little baby shadow creatures, they are fucking explained in Brotherhood what they are or what that entity is.
Right.
All that shit gets explained in Brotherhood. And I honestly feel like with this one, I kind of feel like they just didn't have the time. And not only the time, but they just kind of, I don't want to say like they lost track of where they were going with it. I feel like they had the basis for it and they were like, this is where it needs to go, but they weren't 100% sure on how to get it there.
Yeah.
So it does, once you get to those last few episodes, it is very fast.
Yeah. It did barrel through pretty quick.
Yes. Like you get hit with so much information. And that is one thing where I feel like if you ever go back and rewatch this one, or when we watch Brotherhood, if you ever go back and rewatch that one, you're going to pick up on more and more things. And I don't know. I'm glad that you seem to like it.
No, this is definitely one I would love to rewatch because I don't want to worry about doing this.
Yeah, the podcast.
I want to be able to actually watch it and absorb it without wondering, well, what do I have to retain now?
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about it because at some point I had to stop trying to write down notes, and I've just been using a wiki to read the synopsis so I could just keep up because I would remember it like I watched it, and then as I was reading it, I would be like, yes, I remember that. But then sometimes the wiki doesn't even keep up properly, and they write it stupid, and then I'm like, that doesn't sound right, and that's why I get tongue tied trying to think of my words.
Is those things where, like the outline of Al in the gate, the more you watch it, the more you're going to pick up on all these little things that I kept, like pointing out. Like even I remember one of the first few episodes where you see Envy as, I don't remember who the heck he impersonated, but I know it was a military somebody. And, Edward asked something and you hear the voice inside and he's like, well, how am I supposed to know? And it wasn't the voice that matched the character.
Yeah.
And you remember after like he showed who he was, you were like, okay. And I was like, well, if you paid attention to the voice, it wasn't their voice. It was Envy's.
And it's, and that's pretty clever stuff too, to throw in hints that are there.
Yeah.
And if you're not paying attention, it actually rewards people who are. And I was trying, but I guess I was paying attention to the wrong things at the time.
Oh, I feel like that's why when you get to watch them several times, you're definitely going to find all of those like little hidden Easter egg type things.
Yeah. So, yeah, I definitely enjoyed this, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the movie kind of concludes everything because, again, I don't feel like this needed a capper with a movie, but I understand why people might have wanted one. And maybe even the showrunners, whoever did this show specifically, maybe felt like they wanted to end it on a better note or do something more with it, because I'm really curious, what is the movie about? Like, what do you do other than, so is it just going to be about them trying to get back together, or is there more to it? That's what I'm curious about. But again, I think it could have done without it. I think that would have been a solid finale. And again, I'm eager to watch it again at some point, because I want to be able to pick up and absorb a lot of this more, because even the character names, I struggled with those. And I feel like when we go to something like Brotherhood, even if we watch that, I should remember a lot of those characters, and I will kind of take note of that. And
well, the ones that exist in Brotherhood,
right.
Yes. Which a lot of the major characters do exist. I will say there is one character in Brotherhood that they do not have in the original, which really disappoints me, which is Major Armstrong's older sister, because she is a badass bitch and she is gorgeous. But she is also, like, even when they portrayed the what was it called, drachma?
Yeah.
It's not like what it is in Brotherhood and in the manga. Like, when they go up north and meet Major Armstrong's sister, it is like a frozen, tundra. Like, it's cold. And all these people live in, like, this big ass, it almost looks like a dam. Like, it's weird looking. But, like, that's nowhere in here. But yet they mentioned the fucking country. So, I don't know. It's, even... God dang, like, there's so much. Like, even Mustang and Hawkeye's whole relationship / friendship, so much of a better explanation.
Okay.
So much better explanation in Brotherhood. Like, you would understand the kind of unspoken love they have for each other when you watch Brotherhood.
But again, I feel like they were working off of, half of a story. And they had to just kind of make do, but maybe they didn't want to tread on certain things, and they were like, well, we'll just use the footnotes, and that's that, and try to make the best of it, which is fair. But again, I think they did a fine job.
Yes, absolutely. And it still holds a special place in my heart. I will say that I don't much care for how the movie concludes.
Okay.
But that's just because I feel like they were trying to force an ending on it, and they just didn't have a good idea of what the ending should have been.
Okay.
But that's just my opinion. But I am happy that the movie came out, because you do get an ending. Okay. Besides them just, longing to be together again. You do get some form of an ending. So, but anyway, I am super glad that you liked it. Mm-hmm. I am so sorry, all my weebs, that it has taken, well, I guess technically it hasn't taken forever for us to record everything.
Well, it feels like it for us. For all of you listening, you have just been, coming in week to week to week, and you've had an entire year worth of content. So
you have. And we have been discussing on what our next one's going to be.
But we should save that for the next episode after we talk about the movie.
Well, I have to make a decision on which one I want to do.
Well, then you can fill us in next time.
All right, my weebs. Is there anything else you want to say, Stephen?
No. Like I said, we're going to wrap up this season with the film, which I don't know the full name of it. I know it's got some little subtitle to it that I don't have in front of me at the moment. But next week, coming back with the film, doing a full big review of that, and I guess we'll discuss what we're going to look at doing next year.
Yes.
So
season
excited. 4, baby.
Whoop, whoop. All right, my weebs. We will see you next time.
This has been a Pencil and Paper Podcast Network production.